Hey guys, it's Tiny Tim Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the latest case to emerge from the BitFenix stables, and that's the Merc. And they've got two versions of this available, an alpha and a beta. We're going to be taking a look at the beta. This generally, I've got to admit, wouldn't be a type of case that I would even... Normally when people say to me, do you want to look at this? I don't normally look at the cheaper stuff anymore because I've really not got the time for it. But the Merc, I've been quite a fan of the BitFenix stuff of late. The Shinobi was about 60 quid. I didn't think I'd like that. Got to admit, didn't think I'd like it. Once I got it and actually started looking at it, I could see so many little options with it. It was a grower. So when they asked me to take a look at this, it was one of those ones I thought I'm going to give it a go and see how I get on with it. And I said to BitFenix right from the get-go, because although this is the way it happens, I did say to them, if I don't like it, I'm going to say about it, and I'll say why, because generally I'm really picky about it, about cases. And they were like, yeah, we don't care, just, as you know, unlike a lot of other places, they were like, if you don't like it, just tell us. Might be something we can fix, might just be a case that's not for you. But I can say that what we've got to bear in mind from the start is this is a budget case, and I mean an incredibly cheap case. In the UK this is going to be available from, prices are ranging from about 32 to 35 quid, which, let's face it, that's not a lot of money at all. We're talking less money than you pay for most heat sinks for an entire case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a good look around it and explain. I've built a rig in there and I've put quite, you know, kind of high-end components in there really, and then we'll discuss everything afterwards. But I will say it's quite a positive review really. But anyway, we'll get the camera in and we'll have a good look round. Right then guys, I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. Now I'm going to keep the camera roughly where it is, so I'm trying to keep the light so that it's going to work. But I'll tilt the case so that you can see. As you can see, you've got two punched grills here for 120mm fans. You know, two 120mm fans in the roof, should you wish. The punch is quite a large punch really, and you can see there's two raised parts, like two raised circles. At the front we have, I'll tilt forward again for you so you can see, 4 USBs, it's all USB 2, there is no USB 3 support. And you've got hard drive activity light, power light, microphone, headphone slots as you'd expect, power and then reset. All quite basic really. The front is all plastic, and I mean all plastic. We've got 1, 2, 3 optical bay slot, and then there's a 3.5 inch bay slot here. And then like a meshed section at the front. A mesh section at the front here. And the front is removable, although you do need to give it a bit of a tug because it's on plastic clips. Now, I'm trying to push the cables inside. When you remove the front, there's no dust filtering for this mesh section. Basically, the meshed section and this cutout here is all the front end airflow that you're going to get. Now, there's no fans that come with it natively, but you can fit 220mm fans in the front should you wish, blowing over the hard drives. Now this kind of recessed hard drive area here with the fans pretty much directly over the hard drive really reminds me a lot of the Corsair 400R. Like I said, it doesn't come with fans, so if you want a bit of extra airflow either over your hard drives or you know, pushing more air into the case to keep the rest of your components cool, then you will need to buy these. But what we need to bear in mind is that, like I said, this is a budget case. Internals are all powder coated as well. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm just going to slide this back on. Does need a bit of a punch to get the sides on, but don't think that that's a bad thing, because that's just what some panels are like. It's just where that's all plastic. Now what I'm going to do Let's move the case back. I'm just going to check on the camera because I can't really see because the light's in the way. I've got the studio light down there, and it's blinding what I can see in the camera. Anyway, so what, we'll go around the back first. Now, 120mm exhaust. It does come with the 120mm exhaust fan. Now you've got these places for grommets for water cooling. Now these are like tabbed, they're removable, so if you want to put water cooling hoses outside you have to snap the tabs off. That's the same with 5 of the PCI slots as well. You have to snap them off to be able to fit anything in them, which means they're not replaceable, but you do get 2 replaceable PCI slots, which is quite strange really, because generally it's all or nothing. So the fact that it does actually come with a pair of them is quite cool. You have to be able to get anything out, you have to unscrew a couple of screws here and remove this kind of like hold-on plate for the PCI slots. That's not necessarily unusual, but powder coat's quite good. Kind of as you'd expect for an ATX case, power supply in the bottom, 7 PCI slots. There is some tabs here, very basic tabs, so that you could put a padlock through if you were going to take this to a game, to a LAN, sorry. You can see again, big mesh panel on the side, obviously to let you get extra air in for your cooling should you need it. It's going to be a bit of a dust fiend that, but if I take the side off now, I'll be honest with you, when I first got this case, I thought because of the powder coat the door was stuck, and I was going like this for ages trying to get the door off, pounding the sides, because you generally get used to doors going on and then slotting into place. Well, this one you just quite literally give it a tug, and it just pushes into place, and the powder coat is quite tight, but it all pops into place and it's all held in really well. So, but the doors, I have to say, the doors are what I would say is where you can feel that it's a budget case, because they are quite flimsy. But yeah, that's probably the only place I've really felt that it was, you know what I mean, a bit lacking. But like I said, for 30 quid you can't really moan. All of the fittings that came with the case are black, by the way, so all the fittings for all the motherboard screws, hard drive screws, optical base screws, everything is black. Got an internal black powder coat, which is also quite good. Quite good, it's actually very good. You've got a slot in the bottom for a 120mm fan should you want to use it. Now, I've got the Noctua NH-D14 in here, and as I have said many a time in the past, I'm just going to make sure that you can still see okay there. I'll move the camera up a bit for you, and zoom you in a bit. How about that? Move it over a bit. There we go. How are we looking, guys? Yeah, that's a bit better, isn't it? Right, Noctua NH-D14. As I've said before, as long as you've not got a side panel fan, and you've got a 120mm fan in the back, the D14 will fit. This case, true in course, it's got everything that we want. It's not got side panel fans, it's got 120 at the back, it fits. That's what the D14 was designed for, so that goes in there fine. This is the 6990, probably the longest graphics card on the market at the moment, and you can get it in. It fits. Obviously you couldn't have a hard drive on the same plane of the graphics card, but from the third slot down with the 6990 in there you can have your hard drives. If you're planning on putting a lot of hard drives in, you may get some issues with longer graphics cards, so you're just going to have to weigh it up really. But I'd normally put the hard drives at the bottom out of the way anyway. I can't see many of you having enough hard drives to fill this whole thing up unless you're planning on having a server. And if you're planning on having a server, why would you need a massive graphics card? It's a no-brainer really. If you're going to have lots of hard drives, cool, you've got room for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hard drives there in the front. They do mount directly onto the case. There's no damping or anything in there. So if you've got noisy hard drives, you know, that spin quite loud or click, this will put a bit of the noise into the case, so you will be able to hear it. But to be perfectly honest with you, the Western Digital Green 2TB drives, 5,400 RPM spin speed. In this, you can barely hear them at all. So that's something for you to keep in mind. They're actually the drives that I recommend for storage. Solid state drive for your iOS, Storage, Western Digital 2 terabyte, because they're cool, they're calm, and they're quiet. Anyway, plenty of room in the bottom of the case should you want to use monstrous power supplies. This is just a normal 160mm length power supply. Obviously you can mount it both ways because it's got the fitments at the back for both, which is quite good. Obviously I always mount mine with the fan up. Now what I'm going to do is just quickly grab my screwdriver. I'm going to whip the back off because I want to show you some of the cable options around the back, and there is a section that I really need to do with the camera in my hand just so that I can explain a few bits. But we do have cable management holes pretty much dotted all around on this, and for cable management, there you go, that's the door off. It's actually very good for a case of this price. Now, you can see I've got my rig in here. Now you've got one power supply cable hole here, and you've got a large one cut out here. Now none of them have got grommets, but the hard drive is pretty much in the hard drive. You've got the motherboard tray, and then I'm going to show you on by hand because it'll be much easier. You can see that there's a step there. So it gives you more room for your cable routing. Now also, if I move this all out of the way, you've also got cable routing holes down the side of the hard drives. Now stick you back on the tripod. Now, right, so you've got a large CPU cut out here, and you've got a cut out at the top to be able to get your 8-pin power through. With your 8-pin power, if it splits, it will fit through. If it's fixed as one piece, you'll need to fit it before you fit the motherboard. Either going up the back of the motherboard tray or whatever, it doesn't really matter. The motherboard tray itself, while I'm talking about it, doesn't actually have motherboard standoffs there that you screw in. They're already stamped in, that's what these pieces are. So it's actually part of the case. Like I said, you can see there that the powder coat's nice and smooth. Also, you can see I'm trying to scratch that with my nail and it's not marking it. Now, on a lot of cases, sometimes if you do that, it takes all the skin off because it's so rough. In this case, doesn't. It's actually really nice. Really nice, smooth, satin black powder coat inside. And like I said, there's not a massive amount of room behind the motherboard tray, but that's why this section is recessed, so that you have all your cables back here, kind of in this area, and then you just have the ones that you are essential to go up the back of the board. And you don't really, I wouldn't say you really need much else, because once that's on there, the back panel, you do need to give it a bit of a press on because of the 8-pin power cable, but other than that, once it's on and in place, everything sits there fine. Obviously that's not screwed in at the moment. If we stick a screw in, everything stays there perfect. I'll spin this around so I can actually see myself. I'll stick one in quickly. All you really need to do, what I normally do, is stick the case on the side, like that, line the everything up where it's all got to go. Obviously give it a bit of a push, stick your screws in, and just stick your screws in with it while it's on its side, because you can use your weight to hold the panel on then. But now it's on, that's it, job done. Now, I used, I'm using an 1155 base system in this with the D14. And with the D14, obviously where there's no front panel intake or anything, temperatures with it like this were sort of about 5 or 6 degrees warmer than what I would have expected for the D14 with the clocks that I was using. But I chucked a couple of fans in the front, and it was then within a couple of degrees of what I would have been expecting for the D14. So the airflow is very good. Obviously you've got the you can mount more fan, an extra fan at the bottom. you can have extra fans in the roof as well. So you could, obviously if you've got it, you know, the extra fans and stuff laying around, put extra fans in and get plenty of airflow flowing through there. Also what you can see is other than the hard drive maybe having a problem with your graphics cards, if you're running a pair of long graphics cards, for example, like Crossfire or SLI, you may get problems with your drives. So you may then need to think to yourself, okay, I can get 2 mechanical drives in clear before I start hitting motherboard territory. So for those of you out there, all I'm basically trying to say is all you really need to do is think about what you need to be putting in this rig. Now, I've pretty much covered everything. It performs well, built the system in there, plenty of cable routing options. What more can I say? So I think now really what we need to do is push this over to one side and we'll crack on with the conclusion. So then guys, the BitFenix Merc beta, what do I think? I mean predominantly we've got to go straight in with that price. 31 quid to 35 quid, do you know what I mean? Sorry, 32 to 35 quid. I mean, that's such a cheap case when you put it into the grand scheme of things, but it's a cheap case that does actually deliver quite a bit. I mean, yeah, you're never going to get away from, with a price that cheap, there are going to be components or, you know, parts of the build quality that are going to feel cheap, and on this really, it only really becomes apparent the doors do feel, there are like very thin material and there's not a lot of bracing or moulding or anything around the outside. They are quite a basic door, so the doors themselves do feel quite thin and cheap. Also with the front being all plastic, and probably the plastic that they've used for it as well does feel a bit cheap as well. And obviously they've had to cut it out, they've got no front fans for it or anything, but let's face it, for the price of a 120mm fan, most of us have probably got spares hanging around that we could chuck in there. Now, as far as the inside goes, build quality wise, with all those, the way it's put together with all the cable routing options and places that you can stick everything, it's clipped so that you can clip the cables up, it's pretty good. Obviously it's quite small, so the hard drives may be a problem with multiple graphics cards, but to be perfectly fair with you guys, if you can't work out, you know, whether you can get your rig in there or not, yeah, you shouldn't be building your own computer. 2 hard drives in the very bottom, won't go up higher than the power supply. As you go above that, if you're running SLI cards or Crossfire cards, then obviously you may get problems, but like I said, it's a small cheap case, you can't be expecting the world. Could make quite a good sort of home server rig because of the front fans blowing directly over the hard drives. But even if you've got a big power rig and you're just looking for something cheap, maybe it's you haven't got a lot of, you know, you've not got a lot of money. You may have like an old 470 or something that you know what I mean, it's still pumping out some heat, and you want a cheap case to chuck it in. Well, 220mm fans in the front, 220s in the roof. Bosh, do you know what I mean? Plenty of airflow there. Also, you may be looking for a cheap case that you can just throw in the back of your car after a LAN and you're not really going to be worried about it. Could be perfect. Now, normally I say from the get-go, kind of an award, and I'd like to give this Value for Money award. It's because really it is. It's never going to break any world records of being the strongest or like the best design or anything like that, and like the build quality is probably better than I would have expected for 30 quid. I've done a few cases like this in the past and they've been, you know, terrible. No cable routing options, only really a fan in the front and a fan in the back. So this does bring a lot in the fact that we've got mesh on the side for airflow, we've got fans in the roof, good cable management. You can fit most rigs in there, if I'm perfectly honest with you. And yeah, to the point where this is kind of a similar sort of size to the Shinobi, and I still reckon that with a bit of fettling, I reckon you could, if you really wanted to, I'm not saying that you will, but you could, if you really wanted to, easily get a water cooling radiator in the front of this as well. It could be a, you know, a nice little project case for someone that's, you know, starting to get into modding, hasn't really got a lot of money to spend on a case and just wants something maybe to practice on, have a bit of a play with some spare parts. could be a great little case. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think it would be brilliant. It would almost be a really good basis for like a modding competition as well. I mean, where everyone gets the same kind of case, and you then go off and see what you can do with it. But yeah, I do really like it. I've got to admit, it wouldn't be something I would use personally, but I'll be blatantly obvious about it. It's just obviously I get sent a lot of stuff, so I wouldn't necessarily be buying this for myself. But if I was building a budget system for someone and they said, you know what I mean, I've not got a lot of money, got to squeeze every last penny out of it, this would probably be high on my list, if not top of my list of budget cases to go out and buy, because it does everything that you could want. You can easily get a big power rig in it if you wanted to, with a couple of extra fans in the front, maybe an extra 1 or 2 fans in the roof. It could be you know, a good performing case thermally as well. I don't really see what more you could want for 30 quid, to be perfectly honest with you. I think BitFenix have probably gone beyond what you would have expected for a £30 to £35 outlay for a case. And like I said, it performed very well, and I'm actually very, very impressed. So they definitely get a value for money, because I think it goes beyond what I would have expected to have got for 30 quid. But it's difficult because to go from there, from an award, I wouldn't really know. If I was going to give it an award based on its price, it probably would be a gold or a silver. More than likely a gold for the price, but I'm just going to give it the value for money because it's absolutely bang on. So yeah, but that, I was just kind of trying to explain, if I had to give it an award, you know, comparing it on its price, compared to other cases that are on the market at that price, this would get a gold award. But I'm just going to give it that value for money award because it is absolutely stonking good value for money. But a lot of people recently have been forgetting about how much they're actually paying for a chassis. So when you pay £35 for this, you probably are getting what I would have thought would have been like £45 or £50 worth of money from another manufacturer. That's what I'm kind of meaning by value for money with this. But anyway, I know I'm rambling. I've had far too much coffee today, yeah, as you can see, I've put a massive rig in this, so you can see everything kind of can go in there as well. But again, I'm going around in circles. So with the BitFenix Merc, that's just won an OC3D Value for Money award. This is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out. Right, outtakes. I don't know how many people will watch right to the end, especially past the logo, but for those of you people, those of you subscribers that generally do watch right to the end, I made a bit of a boo-boo. I said beta, but look, it's actually the alpha. So, my bad, I apologise, it is an alpha. But we'll see how many people put in the comments underneath, Tom, you've got it wrong, you got it wrong. Yeah, I did get it wrong, sorry. But, how many people did you post before I got to the end? So, it's the BitFenix Merc Alpha, not the beta like I said. The Alpha has the extra fans in the roof, the beta doesn't. I got it the wrong way around. My bad.